Okay, we're going to talk about breathing next. Now that we've really hammered postures, we know what position to put our body in, we can just get into those positions and hang out. We've gone over Zhang Zong, just relaxing arms in front, and then 3 different positions for Wu Ji, where we're connecting to the 3 dantians, the 3 different energy centers. Now that we have position, just like the way that you're learning in the mobility course and in your training program, we start with position and posture, then we add the breath. Then we can start to add more of the nuances and layers into that. But now that we've got position, I want you to start to think about the breath. And in the breathing tutorial course, I want you to think about the 4-part breath and the elevator breath to start. So quick recap on that. The elevator breath is related to positional breathing. So the same concept of the 3 dantians, we can think of the 3 positions of where we want to focus the breath in the elevator breath. The first is the lower dantian, or the deep belly and diaphragm. The second dantian, this middle space, we can think of as the ribs and the middle lobes of the lung. And then the upper dantian, it's less in the head, obviously, it's more here, but it's lifting the chest and breathing into the upper lobes of the lungs up here. The goal is to take your biggest, deepest, fullest breath. And so by emphasizing the 3 different sections, we can really maximize the amount of air we're getting in and out of the system. So when we think about breathing into the lower dantian, or the first third of the core of the trunk, we want to breathe down into the pelvis, like we're dropping our balls, dropping our gooch, dropping our pelvic floor down, relaxing the butthole and allowing it to kind of open as we expand that bottom part of the diaphragm, and then also the front part here of the belly. So we're breathing down into the balls and the pelvic floor and out in front into the belly. That's the first third of the breath there. The second third of the breath is actually into the sides of the ribs and the middle of the back here. So I want you to think about your rib cage being like bucket handles that go across, right? Imagine if we were to lift these bucket handles up. If you see my hands here, as I inhale, do I get wider or narrower? If I really lift and expand the sides here, I get wider. The balloon gets bigger. I can fill more air in that space. So I'm breathing out here and into this mid-back area. So I'm breathing all the way around that middle dantian line, expanding it out in 360 degrees, really thinking about lifting my ribs and breathing into the middle of my back. The third part of the breath, think about lifting the sternum and filling up the upper lungs here in the chest. So I breathe down and in front, and then I breathe out into the sides and in the mid-back, and then I fill the upper part of the chest all the way up, lifting the chest so that breath comes all the way up, and I'm expanding the top part of that diaphragm. Okay, a lot of people are tight up in this region. Just by relaxing here and breathing fully up, you're getting that stretch, that movement, and all this tight area right here. A lot of people are tight here. This is like your upper pelvic floor, your hiatal sling, and then your middle part of the diaphragm comes all the way down and attaches here at the pelvic floor at the bottom. So this is where a lot of people are really stiff and tight. Oh, my hips, my hip flexors, my psoas, or my diaphragm, oh, sticky up here, or like, oh gosh, I'm so tight up in here. Just by breathing appropriately, we can start to down-regulate the nervous system and soften up and malleabilize, not a word, that tissue, giving yourself a little bit of a self-massage from expansion and contraction. Expanding and contraction of the tissues is expansion and contraction of vasculature. You're getting that pumpage action that's helping to move blood, oxygen, fluid through your system, circulating out the old and in the new so you can recover more. So just by maximally breathing with the focus on the 3 different positions and filling yourself optimally, you're going to help to downregulate the nervous system even more, deeper, longer, slower breath, and get some nice release in all of this stuff, especially 1% a day for 100 days. You're starting to notice how the body is becoming softer and more malleable. And that's actually a piece of anecdotal advice that I got personally from one of my massage therapists when I started practicing yoga and qigong more regularly. And this is from the more so yoga perspective, but when I was practicing downregulation more and yoga and meditation more, I was actually getting feedback from my massage therapist telling me that my tissues were becoming more supple. And I thought that was a great word. They were still firm and muscular, but she said they weren't hard and gristly. So, random tangent, elevator breath. That's the first type of breathing, where we're breathing out and expanding fully on the inhale, and then the exhale, we just naturally exhale and let the body contract back into the center line. That's the first type of breath, and that can be used in conjunction with the 4-part breath that I mentioned earlier, which is really just the rhythm, the tempo that we add to our inhale pause at the top, exhale pause at the bottom. So not only are we physically, kinesthetically, somatically sensing where the breath is coming in and what muscles are moving and expanding to create the most optimal and maximal inhalation and exhalation, but we're also adding a specific rhythm, a cadence to that breath. So we've got this nice, steady, smooth sine wave of inhaling, pausing, exhaling, pausing, inhaling, pausing, exhaling, pausing, creating this nice loop. Watch that video, you'll see the graph, you'll see what it looks like. It's all drawn up for you for that. So the 4-part breath you can use with anything because it's a tempo. The elevator breath, that positional deep diaphragmatic belly breath, is the first breath technique that I want you to work on and master, because again, all the stuff I just talked about, the relaxing of all this stuff that likely needs that little extra love. And it's just practice. It's the first thing. It's the easiest one.